You know, it's strange. Most of us grew up believing that becoming rich was simply a matter of working hard, staying disciplined, and maybe crossing our fingers for a bit of luck. But, here's the part nobody prepared you for. Some of the hardest working people you know will never become financially free, not because they're lazy, not because they're not smart, but because the system quietly teaches them a lie that shapes every decision they make. And if you've ever wondered why you feel like you're running on a treadmill while others seem to climb effortlessly, well, by the end of this video, you'll finally see the real reason and the shift that changes everything. My name is Tony, and I spend way too much time thinking about how money, psychology, and emotion all collide, and how understanding that collision can change your life. If you're tired of vague financial advice and ready to see things differently, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button if this video opens your eyes. Now, here's something that will blow your mind. You know, it's strange how early the lie starts. Somewhere between childhood and adulthood, we're told a story that sounds so comforting you barely notice it shaping your entire life. Work hard, stay disciplined, and eventually you'll be rich. But if that were true, the hardest working people you know would be financially free. And you and I both know that's not how the world works. Maybe you remember the first time it hit you. You stayed late, pushed through exhaustion, sacrificed sleep, and your bank account barely moved. It's a quiet kind of pain, a private one, something you don't complain about, but you carry it inside your chest like a weight that never quite settles. And after a while, you start thinking it must be you. Maybe you're not working hard enough. Maybe you're not smart enough. Maybe something is wrong with you, but nothing is wrong with you. You were simply given a story that doesn't match reality. Society trained us for a world where degrees, long hours, and loyalty were supposed to guarantee success. It felt predictable, comforting, moral even. So when the formula didn't work, we didn't question the formula. We questioned ourselves. The truth is, the economy doesn't reward effort. It rewards leverage, ownership, and positioning, things most people are never taught. But because the work hard equals get rich story is so deeply programmed, we cling to it. We grind harder, we hustle more. We hope the treadmill will magically turn into a road. In one survey, over 62% of people working more than 50 hours a week had less than $1,000 in savings. Not because they didn't try, not because they didn't care, but because effort alone has almost zero correlation with wealth outcomes. It's like trying to build a house on cracked concrete. It doesn't matter how good your tools are, the foundation will still give way. Imagine running on a treadmill that slowly speeds up. You sweat more. You push harder. You feel the burn in your legs and the tightening in your chest. But the wall in front of you never moves. Eventually, you stop noticing the treadmill. You just assume you're not running hard enough. But the treadmill was the problem all along. And once you finally see this, once you really feel the truth of it, a new question starts to rise quietly in the back of your mind. If effort doesn't create wealth, then what does? Because somewhere out there, people are playing a completely different game. And the moment you learn the rules they know, everything starts to shift. It's strange. The moment you realize hard work alone won't make you rich, something inside you shifts. It's like a quiet voice whispering, then what actually does? And that question, that single innocent question, is where the real journey begins. Because while most people double down on effort, a smaller group of people, the ones who seem to jump levels in life, are doing something very different. Not louder, not harder, just different. Maybe you've seen it. Someone you know suddenly moves to a better place, takes vacations you didn't even know they had time for, or builds something that keeps growing even when they're not working. You look at them and think, how? We're putting in the same hours. But the truth is, they aren't playing the same game as you. They're operating in a reality most people never get shown. Money doesn't respond to sweat. It responds to scale, to leverage, to ownership. But nobody teaches you that. Instead, you're handed a script, Get a job, work your way up, ask for a raise every few years, and hope your savings grow faster than inflation. It's predictable, yes, but predictable in the same way that a hamster wheel is predictable. Meanwhile, the wealthy are building systems that work whether they're tired or energized, asleep or awake. They don't trade their hours for dollars, they trade ideas for leverage. And here's the surprising part, it's not even about privilege for most of them. It's about perspective. Research shows that nearly 80% of millionaire wealth comes from ownership, business equity, investments, real estate, digital assets, not from earned income. Yet, over 70% of the population pours all their energy into the salary ladder because that's the only ladder they were ever shown. And honestly, it's not your fault. You weren't raised to think about leverage. You were raised to think about effort. There's a big difference. Effort says, do more. Leverage says, make more happen with less of you. Effort says, work longer hours. Leverage says, build something that works even when you don't. Effort rewards exhaustion. Leverage rewards intelligence, creativity, and courage. It's almost like this. Imagine two people trying to move a giant boulder. One is pushing with everything they have, sweating, panting, straining. The other quietly walks over, places a long wooden plank under it, and the boulder moves with a fraction of the force. To the untrained eye, it looks unfair. But to the trained mind, it's just physics. Wealth works the same way. The hidden rule is this: money doesn't flow to the person working the hardest. It flows to the person who built the mechanism. Once you see this, you can't unsee it, and you start noticing the difference everywhere in businesses, in careers, in families, in your own daily life. Some people are climbing, others are elevating, and the difference has nothing to do with how much they care, and everything to do with how they think. But even when someone understands these rules, even when they want to build systems, not stress, there's something deeper that still holds them back. Something emotional, something biological, something that quietly sabotages every attempt to move forward. Because you can't think about leverage when your brain is stuck in survival. And that's where the real story begins. There's a moment in everyone's financial journey where the problem stops being numbers and starts becoming pressure. That tight, invisible pressure in your chest when rent is due, or the car needs a repair, or your bank account balance feels like a countdown timer instead of a resource. And once you feel that pressure long enough, your brain quietly shifts into a different mode, a mode you never consciously choose: survival. It's strange how survival mode works. You don't wake up and say, today I'm going to make fear-based decisions. It just happens. Bills pile up, unexpected expenses hit. A paycheck disappears faster than it arrives. And slowly, without realizing it, your brain stops thinking about next year and starts thinking only about next week. This is the part people rarely talk about, not because it's shameful, but because it's invisible. You can be functioning, smiling, going to work, holding conversations, but inside, your mind is scanning constantly for threats. How long can I stretch this? What's going to break next? What if something goes wrong? When your brain is in survival mode, it's not broken. It's protecting you. But the truth is, survival mode is the silent killer of wealth, because when your nervous system is flooded with fear, you can't think long term. You can't strategize. You can't build. You can't invest in anything, not money, not skills, not opportunities, because your entire mental world shrinks into a tiny circle called right now. And here's what most people never realize: your decisions weren't bad. They were biological. Cortisol, your stress hormone, literally shuts down the parts of your brain responsible for planning, creativity, and long-term thinking. That's why someone in survival mode says things like, I'll start saving when things calm down. Or, I know this isn't good for me, but I don't have a choice right now. They're not wrong. They're in a state where the brain chooses safety over growth every time. And the worst part, society judges people for this. It calls them irresponsible or lazy or undisciplined, when in reality, they're operating with a nervous system that's simply trying to keep them alive. Imagine trying to build a house in the middle of an earthquake. You can have the best blueprint, the best tools, the strongest willpower, but every time you hammer a nail, the ground shifts beneath you. That's what it feels like to build wealth while your body is still trying to survive. But here's the hopeful part, and you need to hear this clearly. There is nothing wrong with you. You didn't fail. You didn't sabotage yourself. You were never taught how to think about money while your brain was drowning in stress. And once you understand the biology behind your decisions, something powerful happens. The shame starts to lift. And when shame lifts, clarity finally enters. Because the moment you step out of survival mode even a little, the game changes. You begin to see possibilities, not threats. You begin to see patterns, not problems. You begin to notice opportunities that were in front of you the entire time. And that's when wealth building stops feeling impossible and starts feeling like something you can actually design. But before that shift can happen, there's one realization that reshapes your entire relationship with money, a realization that turns the old lie on its head and replaces it with a new truth. Wealth isn't something you chase. It's something you build through systems. And once you see that, your entire life begins to rearrange itself. At some point, after the chaos of survival mode begins to calm even slightly, something surprising happens. You start realizing that maybe the problem was never your discipline, or your motivation, or your willingness to work hard. Maybe the real issue was that you were trying to build wealth emotionally instead of mechanically. Because the truth is, wealth isn't an outcome. It's a system. A quiet, boring, repeatable system that runs whether you're inspired or tired, confident or insecure, motivated or exhausted. Most people think wealth is about big moments, the perfect business idea, the right investment, the lucky break. But real wealth is built in the small, almost invisible choices that compound over months and years. It's the automatic transfer that moves money before you see it. It's the habit that runs even on your worst days. It's the environment you design so your future self doesn't have to fight your current self. The wealthy understand something most people don't. The goal isn't to work harder. The goal is to create a structure where wealth becomes the default outcome. Think about it like this. If you drop a seed on concrete, it doesn't matter how good the seed is, nothing will grow. But if you plant that same seed in rich soil, with sunlight and water, it grows almost effortlessly. Most people are the seed, but the wealthy focus on the soil. They create systems. Systems that save before they spend. Systems that invest automatically. Systems that reduce decisions, eliminate friction, and protect them from their own emotions. Because emotions, as human as they are terrible financial advisors. This is why some people make a little money and it disappears instantly, while others make the same amount and turn it into something bigger. It's not willpower, it's architecture. The wealthy build their lives like engineers. Where does money enter? Where does it sit? Where does it flow? How much of it grows without them touching it? Most people let money move through their lives like water through open fingers. The wealthy build channels that direct the flow. And when you hear all this, it doesn't mean you need to become robotic or emotionless. It just means you stop letting your mood decide your financial future. When the system handles the money, you're free to handle your life. Imagine waking up and knowing your savings increased while you slept. Your investments grew without you thinking about it. Your financial stress reduced without a single moment of motivation required. That's what systems do. They give you the one thing survival mode steals from you: space. Space to think. Space to breathe. Space to imagine a future instead of fearing it. And once your system is in place, once you've created a structure that naturally builds wealth, something deeper begins to shift inside you. Your identity. The way you see yourself. the way you move through the world. And that shift is where everything truly changes. There comes a moment in every financial journey where the numbers stop mattering and the feelings take over. Not the spreadsheets, not the charts, but the heaviness you carry, the quiet guilt, the frustration you never say out loud, the shame you think you're the only one feeling. And if we're being honest, most people don't struggle with money because they're uneducated. They struggle because they're hurting. It's the sting of comparing yourself to people your age, the embarrassment of pretending everything's fine when your chest feels tight every time you check your balance, the fear that maybe you waited too long, or made too many mistakes, or missed the window everyone else somehow found. You start telling yourself stories. I should have figured this out by now. Everyone else seems ahead. Maybe I'm just not built for this. But these stories aren't truths, they're wounds. And wounds talk loudly. When I say this, I say it gently. Your financial life didn't fall apart because you were careless, or weak, or irresponsible. It fell apart because you were surviving. And survival requires a different version of you, a version who isn't thinking about wealth, just safety. But now, you're here, listening to this, which means something inside you is finally ready to breathe again. Here's the part nobody tells you. You are allowed to forgive yourself for the decisions you made in fear. You are allowed to release the shame that never belonged to you. You are allowed to grow without punishing the person you used to be. Most people think wealth starts with money. It doesn't. It starts with identity. The moment you stop seeing yourself as someone who's behind and start seeing yourself as someone who is learning, adapting, rebuilding, that's the moment the future opens. Because once you stop fighting yourself, your energy stops leaking. You stop breaking down every time something goes wrong. You stop assuming every setback confirms some flaw inside you. And slowly, quietly, a new voice begins to form. A softer one, a wiser one. A voice that says, maybe I can do this, maybe I deserve better. You don't need a perfect plan to change your life. You just need a moment, one moment where you finally decide to believe that your past doesn't get to decide your future. This is that moment. And once this emotional shift happens, everything else becomes possible. Your systems start working. Your habits start sticking. Your mindset starts opening. You begin to move differently, not with panic, but with purpose. Because now, wealth isn't something you're chasing. It's something you're becoming, and that identity shift is what leads you into the final, most powerful stage of this journey. At some point, after the shame softens and the stories you carried begin to release their grip, you wake up one day and feel something unfamiliar. Lightness. It doesn't mean everything is perfect. It doesn't mean you suddenly became rich overnight. It just means something inside you finally shifted from I'm trying to survive to I'm building now. And that shift, that quiet internal shift, is the moment people miss when they talk about money. They think wealth starts with strategy, but it always starts with identity. You begin moving differently, not urgently, not fearfully, just intentionally. Your relationship with money stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a collaboration. You start designing instead of reacting. You start building instead of chasing. You start seeing opportunities where before you only saw obstacles. And it's not because life magically changed, it's because you did. You finally understand that wealthy people aren't lucky or chosen or born with something special. They're consistent, they're systematic. And most importantly, they're patient enough to let their systems do the work instead of trying to force everything themselves. Your habits begin stacking quietly. A little saved here, a little invested there, a small improvement repeated again and again. Nothing dramatic. Nothing insta-worthy, just steady motion. And slowly, the future stops feeling threatening and starts feeling possible. One day, you look at your account and realize it didn't empty out this month. Another day, You notice you made a decision based on growth, not fear. Another day, you catch yourself saying, I can figure this out instead of I'm doomed. These tiny moments add up. They become the architecture of a new identity, the identity of someone who isn't just hoping for wealth, but becoming the kind of person who naturally creates it. And here's the truth that wraps this entire journey together. Wealth isn't a number in your bank account. It's the person you become on the way there. A person who no longer panics at every problem. A person who trusts their systems more than their impulses. A person who isn't controlled by fear or shame or old conditioning. A person who understands that money is not the goal, freedom is. And once you reach this point, the lie you were taught, the one about hard work magically turning into wealth, it stops holding power over you, because now you know the real story. You know how wealth is built. You know how your mind works. You know where you went wrong and where you're going right now. And most importantly, you finally know who you are becoming. This isn't survival anymore. This is the beginning of your financial life being built not by force but by identity. And that identity changes everything.